Inspire with Nendrix, the foundation.
Hello and welcome back, Embracing Arms community. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us last week as we concluded our series of Women with Badges. I was so excited about that. I want to also thank Malika Rockman, Stephanie Mitchell, and Crystal Turner Childs as they all shared with me throughout the entire month of August their stories of retention and recruitment culture and promotional practices in various sectors and branches of law enforcement and the military. This was an exciting time for me. According to an amazing essay I just read, homeschooling of children is a hotly debated issue among many. Homeschooling is a form of education in which parents or others provide educational instruction for children at home rather than entering the children in a traditional public or private school setting. Many children are being educated at home in the United States right now, and some reports reveal that at least in 2017, there was over 1 million children receiving their education through homeschooling with a parent, a guardian, or a tutor. We know that as 2020 has approached us, and with COVID-19, those numbers have increased significantly. So today is a new series that we're beginning. It's part one, where we'll be engaging parents from all over the country in a conversation about their homeschooling decisions, journeys, best practices, and COVID-19 impact, not only on the general homeschooling and academic assistance of their children, but also its impact on their children's ability to connect socially. My first guest is Tyrell Hairston Green. He is a father to 3 and a Navy husband. He is a native of Pennsylvania and currently raising his children in Washington State, where he is not only supporting his K-5 students' academic journey, but also learning and teaching them Japanese at the same time as they prepare to relocate across seas. He is a graduate of Klein Forest High School in Texas and studied in the College of Agriculture and Human Sciences with Prairie View A&M University. Can you get excited about that? Welcome, 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 Tyrell. And thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to do this. Nice, bright and early in the morning. I got the kids put up in their room right now, so I'm ready to go.
Well, and the audience may not know something that's also, pretty dope about this conversation is that not only is he's an amazing father, an amazing husband doing his amazing sauce out in Washington State, but he's my son. He's my second born, hence the last name Green. I know that you probably didn't catch that because I usually go by Hairston, but he is my amazing son, and he's raising 3 of what I call my grand royals. And so I'm so glad that he had the time to sit with us today because his schedule is busy, busy, busy. So Tyrell, I gave the audience just a little bit of information about you. So, give the audience, talk to them and tell them a little bit more about who you are.
Well, yes, I am raising 3 wonderful kids, and I am married. I've been married for 4 years now, and I am absolutely enjoying this experience that I'm having as far as being a spouse, a military spouse, and raising children at what some would call a young age. It's a beautiful experience, and I'm able to really learn about them and myself, and ways that we can build and grow as a family. And I'm able to do it without a lot of interference. I'm out here on my own. I'm out here with my family, and we're really, and just enjoying this experience.
That's awesome. It was interesting because I know that this would, your kids are 5 and the baby girl is 3. Yeah, turning.
Yeah, B3.
Yeah, she's turning 3. She act like she's 3. And so, so you're experiencing, this whole homeschooling situation for the first time with little ones, right? So that's just a unique experience of itself. What are your reflections related to that experience because they're so little? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I have my reserves about how, of course, the school districts are handling everything, seeing as though this is the first time, not only for me, but for these school districts implementing this homeschooling, this online connected learning. I do realize, though, that nobody really knows. Nobody is sure about how everything is going to work. And almost all the information I've received over the last couple of months since Corona really hit, you have to take with a grain of salt. You can't expect too much from some of these institutions because they are based off of in-person learning, but they are making a huge effort to try to convert everything, to online and connected learning.
Mhm. And so I was looking at, I'm a member of a social media group that has a lot of educators in there. And I saw them post the other day how, you know, people are kind of using the term homeschooling loosely. And in fact, they were pretty offended. The educators were pretty offended by it because they're like, they're not homeschooling. We're teaching their kids, they're just there. They're just in the home. So what is your reflection on that, your participation in this online kind of experience with your young people? Do you see it as homeschooling? Do you see it as you're just kind of like a thought partner for the educators?
Well, with my little bit of experience dealing with school, I did some co-teaching in high school. There is a huge difference between being like a homeschooler and then a homeschool teacher. The word teacher carries a lot. Being a teacher is nothing to take lightly. They do extensive training. They have extensive passions for this. So for a lot of parents home, it's hard for us to really put ourselves in the same category as an actual teacher because what you have to go through to be a teacher is completely different. However, we are doing our best to help and to make the process easier for the teachers, and there are certain things that regardless of what grade you're in, you're going to learn at home. So we're always teachers to our kids, but when it comes to an education system, no, we can't. I wouldn't consider myself a teacher. I have certain knowledge that I can pass on to my children, but I can't pass it on to them in the way that they may need to receive it. Some of that training when it goes to dealing with younger kids, I know how to get from point A to point B, but my kids don't. And the process of teaching is getting them from point A to point B. It's a lot different than just telling your kids the answers or trying to convey it in a 25-year-old's way. They're still children, and there's a certain expertise that comes with teaching children, and that's something that just parents don't naturally have.
Mhm. And because you're my son, that I've tried several ways to teach you guys at home. And I'm an educator, so I teach higher education, of course. But at the time, I didn't have any experience in the classroom when you guys were little babies, and your brother was like the first person who I tried it on, and I was like, yeah, this ain't for me. We gonna try something different. Do you believe that parents can actually provide the same level of education that the children would get going to a public or private school?
I believe that we have the capability to provide that type of education, but one, this is new to a lot of us, and it's one thing to go over like a homework assignment with your student when he's coming home from school. It's another thing to teach a lesson. It's another thing to teach it for hours on the day and days of the week. We don't have that type of mental stamina, and a lot of us don't have the patience to teach children the way they need to be taught. So I do believe that there are a lot of things like I'm teaching the kids addition, how to spell their name, and things like that. But those are simple things. There's more specifics that go into an actual classroom.
Hmm. Hmm. So do I know that with the homeschooling experience or the online digital kind of platform that we're using right now for our kids is kind of forced upon a lot of the parents. Like we talked about that, earlier on in our conversation. But just based on what you know about the public school system, and some of the trials and tribulations that even back in our hometown, the school system is kind of dealing with, would you consider homeschooling your children all the way through high school?
That's a tough one. And especially given the state of the world right now, who knows? By the time they're in high school, we might still be trying to recover from the COVID, and homeschool might be the main option for a lot of people. However, with my kids being very fresh to school, a structured class, they need to be around other kids. And
Mhm.
although I have a whole bunch of kids, they still need, outside friends and outside influences. They need outside experiences. And you can't really just give them that if they're, home with you. And I have a few friends, I have, former coworkers who were high school homeschooled. And there's a shift in their thinking, there's a shift in their mentality, there's a shift in the way they carry themselves because they were so used to doing what mom and dad says. And there are certain things that kids need to experience on their own. And as much as parents don't want to let their kids go, that's something that's very important. So I wouldn't consider doing any homeschool maybe past fourth or fifth grade.
Mhm.
Um, Kids develop certain things, certain secrets, certain behaviors, and they want to express that with people their age and they're like-minded. And if they don't feel comfortable, being that type of kid inside the house, I want them to feel comfortable. But I need the state of the world to be in a place where I can feel comfortable putting them out there in that world.
Exactly. So do you think, you talked about the socialization part of it, which is always like the big critical conversation that parents are having with themselves or with their spouses as they're deciding to do homeschooling. And, growing up, with you guys, I've always put you in programs and social activities and leadership projects and all of those things where you were always socialized and connected. Do you think that is one of the biggest drawbacks to homeschooling? And what are some other drawbacks do you believe could come with homeschooling children?
Some of the bigger drawbacks are, in my mind, is that we're just not capable of giving them that full educational experience. And that what we don't understand now can come and fester later on in their lives, especially if this homeschooling goes on long. Once regular school restarts, we're going to have to put our kids back into a regular class situation. And are they going to be prepared for that? Have you done what you were supposed to do as a parent to prepare them for that? And unfortunately, we won't know. And I think that is the biggest thing, is that this situation is a mystery right now throughout all the school districts across the country. We don't know how this is going to play out. We don't know how the attendance is going to be. We don't know how, the kids are actually going to pay attention. You're putting a computer screen in front of them. We just recently got our Chromebooks for the kids, the boys. And although you sign in and you go straight to your school website, you can also just go on YouTube. You can also go to video game websites or whatever. So while I can be looking at you right now in the camera, I can also be playing a game and not focusing and not paying attention and really just not learning. So there is no real accountability unless the parent is right here, and she's making sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do. However, I do believe that if you're able as a child to be disciplined enough to sit in front of a TV screen and do your homework, once you do go back to regular school, nobody can stop you. You've already mastered understanding that school is not just fun, that is serious, regardless if you're in the class or not.
Mhm.
But the drawbacks, like I said before, everything is so mysterious that we don't even know. Like, I know there are established online schools already and have been for years, but this is just new, and we're still trying to work with the school district, and they're trying to implement in school teaching still. They want us to come back in November. So, you know, we have to get our kids ready for this online stuff. And then maybe in November have to tell them, up, never mind, you're going to regular school. So are we wasting time doing that? Are we helping them by keeping them out of school? We don't know,
Mhm.
and I believe that's one of the drawbacks. The biggest drawback is just the uncertainty of everything.
Mhm. And so, you mentioned that in order for you to, even know that the students actually paying attention and not engaging in other things like YouTube and playing games and things like that, that the parent has to be like right up on a child, right? And then you have educators who's like, parents, go somewhere, go do something. Like you're too up in it, they have videos like kind of streaming through social media where they can see parents like giving the kid the answer, like plus one is two, in the background, so how much is too much, for a parent involvement when they're called, when they're not necessarily the primary schooling teacher, they're just supporting their children as they're, still participating in public schools, but they're at home now and having to be educated that way with their teachers.
I think there's a bigger shift with parents needing to be around, depending on, of course, the grade level of the kids. These are not worksheets that the teachers are sending us. We are having to do this homeschooling on a computer. And while that might be easy for an 8th grader to navigate a computer, my 5-year-olds cannot. Which means, unfortunately, anytime they need to click something, anytime they need to type something, I have to be there to do that for them. So while it might seem obsessive or over the top that I'm always on their shoulder, the moment I walk away, those kids are completely confused, and not because of the work, but the medium in which they're receiving the work.
Mm-hmm.
The kids.
Well, yeah, that's some good feedback, because I know that, we have educators who really struggle with that. And we have parents that struggle with that too, being too involved. And I even noticed that with our collegiate students, we have our students who are, had to return home, learning, online, and parents are more involved in their collegiate experience than they would be if the kid was actually on campus, and they're forced to kind of navigate that space themselves. And so now parents are kind of like that helicopter parent, they're calling administration, they're just doing way too much. So there's like a little balance that you try to have between how much, what are you doing too much of and what are you not doing enough of, and just like really trying to keep that balance. And so
I'm sorry. I was just going to touch on that. There is a new level of accountability for parents now.
Mm-hmm.
And, while it's easy to send your kids off to school and hope that the teachers are going to do what they're supposed to do, and when your kids come home, everything's fine. Now we have to worry about, well, what are we doing? So before, I might not have called the school board or administration, but now I need to, because if I don't, then it all comes back on me squarely.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just a little bit of pressure, and like I said, accountability that comes with this homeschooling that a lot of parents aren't used to, and their only reaction can be, well, I just have to go full force. I have to be 100%. Even if the teacher's telling me to walk out of the camera, I'm just going to step to the side of the camera, because if anything happens, I'm going to have to be the one who has to fix it, because they're here with us. The teacher is not available after school times. And, we just don't want to, like I said, when school starts back up, if school starts back up, we don't want to send unprepared kids, because that's going to look, bad on us as parents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, the other thing is that not only there's a new level of accountability, like there's a new, I don't know if it's a new level or just a new pressure for parents to have like their personal lives exposed, because now you're on this camera, and what you would normally be like, talking through your teeth about, like, you don't get your, it's like now you're like kind of challenged in that. If things are going on in your home, maybe your home is not kept well, or maybe you're just living in a unusual environment, or something that's not kosher to other people, then all of that is exposed. If you normally walk through the house with half clothes, like now you're like, you got to get it together. So some parents are really struggling with having their personal life exposed, because the camera is literally on all day, and if you don't have the right space in your home to put your kid in another room so they can do their classes and away from the common area, like you're just constantly kind of on edge, some parents may say. What is your thoughts about having like your home environment completely exposed all day?
Well, I look at it like this, and many people may not look at it the same way, but I know for a fact that my kids don't want to do school here. and they would rather be in a actual school with a regular school environment. I have to be willing to make that sacrifice because I know that they're making a sacrifice. And as 5-year olds, they don't even recognize the sacrifice that they're making because they've never even experienced even a slither of it. They've had pre-K and daycare, but they don't know what they're really missing out on. So if that means that I gotta bite my tongue, or that means I gotta put pants on, then I'm going to do it, because I don't want to be in this situation, but they don't want to be in this situation, any more than, I do. So, it'll also go to show, and I see a lot, I'm sure you see a lot on Facebook too. It's like, well, don't yell at your kids. And then somebody will comment and say, well, this is how I was raised. This is how my parents taught me. Now, this might be a learning point for a lot of people, that you didn't have to yell at your kids, that you could actually just teach your kids without feeling like you have to do much more. You have to be aggressive, or, and a lot of people don't want to hear that. A lot of people think, oh man, I got to be tough on my kids. And that's a mentality that hopefully this homeschooling breaks, because I pray that the teachers at school aren't talking to the kids the way that some of us parents are talking to the kids. And if you don't want your teacher telling your kid to sit the F down or do his effing work or whatever, the case is, then you don't do it.
Right.
And then you see that the results. If your kid is able to learn his addition without getting slapped in the back of his head, then you don't have to do that anymore.
Do that.
Right. So,
do that.
so it's like it's tough because a lot of people are not willing to change all the time, and a lot of people do feel invaded by this school thing. But this is not a joke, and it goes further to this whole COVID situation, that this is the best option at the moment, no matter how bad it sucks. There's a lot of terrible options, but we have to pick the best terrible option, and that is to keep them home and to do school and to make whatever sacrifices we need to make so that they're prepared for whatever this future brings for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. That's good feedback, for our parents who's experiencing this for the first time. What advice, I know this is new for you. You just stepped into it. You're only a couple weeks in, and you know what I mean, fresh and new. But what advice could you give fathers? Because right now you're the primary, caretaker of the children, academically, socially, in the home. So what advice would you give other fathers who are in your same position, who will be engaging in the homeschooling experience for the first time? What advice do you give to them to be prepared, for the experience?
Almost like every aspect of being a father, I'm blessed because I have a family, and my wife works very hard. So there's not a lot of disconnect. I'm not feeling like I'm doing this all by myself. But a lot of being a father is just making that sacrifice and not being afraid to ask for help. I have found many of websites, many of different types of articles that just kind of go over some of the things that you can do when school is not in session. I have, like, right here, some random papers, nothing important, but that wasn't from the school. That's just little worksheets that I give the kids every day, and just to get them prepared, because I'm not a teacher, and nor a lot of these fathers who are going to be doing this. But the best we can do is give them the most information and help them with whatever we can help them with, and hope that the teachers, can meet us halfway, or however, far they have to meet us. But it's going to be difficult, and it's going to be difficult for all the fathers. It's going to be difficult for all the teachers. It's going to be difficult for all the administration, because it's a big change. So my best advice is just to take everything day by day. Know that you're not alone in anything that you're doing, knowing that you're not stupid if your kid isn't picking up something, fast enough. Because we were once kids, and as much as we want to act like we were so smart and all that, our teachers helped us, and we thought we were doing it on our own, but that's just the skill of the teacher. They made us believe that we can do it, and that's our job now, make our kids believe that they can do it. And then when years down the line, they'll turn around and be like, thank you, Dad. Well, I know you teach me the quadratic formula, but you were there to make sure that I had a basic understanding, and then I was able to take the baton and run with it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, that's good advice. Like, finding additional material, because, back in the day, they were doing homeschooling. This is not new. Homeschooling has been going on for a very long time, and even before internet and all of that stuff. And so trying to find additional resources was a little challenging back then. Now it's a little more accessible for families to get additional resources to help young people master their materials, as well as help parents assist their children appropriately in this experience. And then also creating a community, for yourself, because you're not the only person, out there that's having this experience. And just with COVID alone, like there's been all of these support groups popping up on social media just for this purpose, to help, other parents experiencing that. So, creating a network, recognizing that you're not doing this alone, and, finding additional resources to help your young people master the material is definitely key to being successful in this experience. So I want to thank you for that. But before we end our time together, I want to do this lightning round. And so our viewers know that the lightning round is just a set of 4 or 5 questions that I ask our interviewees. Most of them is kind of embedded in some controversial discussions, and you have the option to pass on anything that's too controversial, but, agree or disagree, or, respond in the affirmative or negative of anything that I share with you. You have 4 seconds to respond to each one of them. And I think we have, well, actually 5 seconds, because we have four comments or questions for you. Are you ready for the lightning round?
I am.
All right, cool. All right, the first one is, it's difficult for homeschool children to get into and receive college scholarships.
Agree.
Homeschool children have difficulty with socialization as adults.
Agree.
Homeschool children doesn't receive the same quality of education.
Agree.
Parents should have formalized education before deciding to homeschool their children.
Agree.
Oh, wow. That was easy.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, man. Those are definitely controversial topics, but, just because they're controversial doesn't make it wrong.
Right.
So.
Right. So it's always interesting to do the lightning round, because you get different perspectives depending on who you interview. So I would love to hear what our next interviewee has to say about some of these controversial questions. But thank you, son. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. It's always nice to chop it up with him. If you want to learn more about what Tyrell is doing and sharing resources with him, I'll have his contact information below. Please check it out. And again, thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in again. You guys are faithful. I see you in here commenting and sharing and reflecting. If there was something that you heard today that energized you or triggered additional questions, please remember to comment below. Like and share and subscribe, and join us again next week as I engage another conversation with Terry Nelson. She's a homeschool parent, and she had been a homeschool parent who spent years homeschooling all of her children. And this was way before the internet and social media got popping off. So tune in and listen to, what she has to say about that experience. And I also want to remind my listeners to be safe. Practice social distancing. And if you don't want to wear a face covering for you, wear it because you care about others. Please remember to go out into your community and embrace someone, because they are waiting for you. And in the meantime, continue to live your absolute best life.
Hello, Embracing Arms community. My name is Tyrell Hairston Green. I am a husband and a father of 3 wonderful children living in Bremerton, Washington. I'm stopping by today to remind you to live your best life.
My prescription, boy, this is my medicine. The world can be sickening and living in house resemblance, not to mention the media's effort to keep us in the most simplistic state of mind. Lowest age bracket committing the highest rate of crime. People dying way before they hit their age of prime. Thinking success only happens if they shoot hoops, move cane or rhyme. Peek through these blinds, over the porch and into these streets. You see why protective moms keep their daughters out of reach from activities. Sure to have them 6 feet deep under the grounds where our local dope dealers meet from a window.